Välkomna tillbaka till Aktiedagen. Nu ska vi prata om en sjukdom som många familjer lider av och många individer. Det handlar om Alzheimer och demenssjukdom. Med oss här har vi Kim Baden Kristensen som är vd för Brain Plus. Välkommen Kim.
Tack ska du ha. Trevlig eftermiddag alla. I'm gonna do this in English to make sure that I get all the words correct. So, unfortunately, dementia is something that touches all of our lives today, whether it's in our families or whether it's in our circle of friends. Dementia is really everywhere today. And it's a terrible disease that is really causing a lot of hardship in people's lives. We lose our ability to take care of ourselves. We lose our ability to remember, to focus, to do everyday tasks like shopping, planning, etc. And that's why it's one of the most costly diseases that exist today. It's also one of the larger ones. 57 million people are suffering from dementia today. That number is going to triple over the next couple of decades. In the United States, 1 out of 3 people are dying with some form of dementia. So it's a big disease, it's growing, and it has tremendous impact. It's also one of the most expensive diseases of all because people are unable to take care of themselves, meaning that they're very costly in terms of care, but also they put a big strain on the family members who are generally the ones doing most of the care because most people living with dementia are still living at home with their family. So that's a big burden on the family caregivers. Unfortunately, we haven't seen a lot of solutions coming out of the more traditional pharma industry. So we're lacking good medicines to treat this disease. Fortunately, there are alternatives. And this is where digital therapies or digitally delivered therapies come into the picture. Just very briefly, what is a digital therapy? This is software that is treating, managing, or preventing a disease. That means it's something that has measurable clinical benefits, measurable health outcomes that are proven in clinical trials, just as you do with a medicine or with a medical device. That's what we mean when we say, or when I say a digital therapy. So the way that Brain Plus is addressing the dementia burden is to make effective Alzheimer's and dementia treatments available to people in need as digital therapies. Our mission is to help people with dementia to be able to live more happier and independent lives with higher quality of lives and longer being able to take care of themselves. So our primary target is to counteract the cognitive decline, the loss of the memory, the loss of the focus, the loss of these abilities that make us able to take care of ourselves. That's the primary thing the therapies that we work with are treating. And we're working in particular with one method. This is called cognitive stimulation therapy. This is currently in the world the non-drug or non-pharmacological method with the absolute best clinical evidence in the world today. It is a so-called psychosocial intervention. The way it works today is that people meet in groups of 3 to 7 people with dementia in the mild to moderate range. There is a trained therapist present, and they go through a 45-minute number of structured activities. And the structure is really important for the effect to actually be there. And it's called psychosocial because it is a lot dependent on the interaction between the people. This method has been proven to consistently improve cognition and quality of life in people with dementia. It's a 7-week program program, the basic program, and then you can continue with a so-called maintenance therapy. The improvement on average corresponds to a 6-month delay in the cognitive decline. If you imagine what that means for the quality of life of the people, if you imagine what that could mean in terms of delayed costs for society, in terms of healthcare, it gets really expensive when people have to be put into a care home. That's when it starts getting really, really expensive. So there's really a lot to be gained with this type of therapy. I said it had the strongest evidence in the world, and because of that, it is now also having support globally by major policymakers, including Alzheimer's Disease International, the global Alzheimer's Association. They published a report last year, the World Alzheimer's Report, that recommended this therapy form to be implemented globally. The World Health Organization also pointed to this therapy form and saying this is part of the solution to the dementia burden. If you are familiar with the clinical literature, then there are now 2 Cochrane reviews out on this therapy form. The second one came out in January this year. This is a meta study of all other studies having been done with this therapy, and it's showing consistently this improvement in cognition and quality of life, including a number of other measures of possible improvements. Improvements in the relationships between the persons with dementia and their caregivers, including the ability to communicate. So it's a very strongly and well-founded therapy. Now, Brain Plus, we are the first ones and the pioneers to digitalize this therapy. And we are doing this in collaboration with the people who invented this. This was invented at the University College of London in the United Kingdom by a professor called Amy Spector. And we're also working with the leading experts in Denmark and in Germany, who are also global experts on this therapy. The first product that we're developing for this therapy is a product called the CST, Cognitive Stimulation Therapy Therapist Companion. As I mentioned, today this is being delivered in groups. This therapy form has been adopted in 37 countries already. It's very large in Denmark and the UK, and it's spreading quickly to these other countries as well. It's currently being delivered in the clinic in the groups. However, the therapists are using an enormous amount of time preparing for these sessions. So the first tool that we have made with our collaborators and the KOL clinicians is a tool that supports the therapist in delivering this therapy and delivering that in a very time-effective manner. So they're saving hundreds of hours in preparation for this. This is solving one of the key problems that they have today, is that they don't have the time to actually do this therapy. So this is a cost-effective way to do it. We have a second product coming that is allowing people to bring this therapy into the home and having it delivered at home with a family member. And then we have a third product in the pipeline, and this is for people with mild cognitive impairment. This is a pre-stage to dementia, so the stage right before dementia. At this point, people are more independent, they can still take care of themselves, and this also means that this therapy is something that we can do even more in the home. Our products are based on some underlying technologies, and these are technologies that we are both co-developing with some of the inventors, and some of them we're developing ourselves. And they are proprietary for us. One of them is related to cognitive stimulation therapy, but I want to mention the 2 other ones. Computerized cognitive training. This is a paradigm that is specifically targeting people with mild cognitive impairment. And there we're working with the University of Gothenburg, among others, to develop this specifically for people with MCI. Finally, we have a memory test that was developed originally by Oxford University that we have worked with them to gamify, make it scalable, make it accessible for remote testing. So all of these technologies are some that are part of the products and will be part of the products that I just showed you. We have already conducted a number of clinical trials with external collaborators. All of our products and technologies have been developed in close collaboration with clinicians and leading experts. So you can see universities like Oxford, Nottingham, the Danish universities from Copenhagen, Aarhus University, and also Swedish, as I mentioned, Gothenburg University, research institutes of Sweden, and a number of other institutions, including the large patient organizations who are also part of our projects, including Alzheimer's Disease International and Alzheimer's Europe. So we already have positive usability and feasibility and proof of concept data on our technologies. And now we're working with the KOLs to do local and additional studies with some of these products that we have developed based on the technologies. We IPO'd on NASDAQ First North in Copenhagen in October 21. And since then, we have delivered more or faster than planned on a number of our milestones, which means that we have put our first product on the market in Denmark. This is 2 years ahead of plan. We have made our first sale in Denmark, and we're now in dialogues with all the Danish municipalities about commercializing this further. Our plan commercially is to now scale this product and the sales of that in Denmark. That's the first product I was mentioning, the one that supports the therapists in delivering this therapy in groups. We'll also be introducing this to Germany this year and to the United Kingdom next year. In the meantime, we're preparing to launch a second version of the first product and to launch the second product that I was telling you about, which was the one that supports the delivery of this therapy at home. We have already partnered with Roche in Germany. They are helping us bring that product to the German market. Roche is a quite big player within Alzheimer's disease. We're also in dialogues with a number of the other leading global Alzheimer's players within the pharmaceutical industry. They are all very interested in digital therapies. They know that this is going to be a part of the way we do healthcare in the future, both as digital therapies as a standalone therapy, but also the combination of digital and medicine. And in fact, cognitive stimulation therapy that we are working with has been shown to enhance the effect of the current Alzheimer's drugs. So there's a big potential there for combining therapies as well. If we look at competition in terms of the non-drug therapies, of course there's some drugs for dementia and Alzheimer's on the market, but if we look at non-drug therapies, there are really no competition that has the same amount of clinical evidence as cognitive stimulation therapy. There are other types which has less or no evidence. So there are plenty of software being offered to people who are in elderly care or in care homes. But none of these have strong clinical evidence behind them. And that is going to be the game changer, which is also why cognitive stimulation therapy is already in the national health guidelines in the United Kingdom, in Denmark, and in Germany. If you look at digital therapies in general, a big question is who will be paying for them? Well, the same as you see with drugs and medical devices is that to an increasing extent, the leading countries are having the health insurance or the state pay for the digital therapies. So this is happening in Germany, it's happening in the UK, it's happening in the US, and a lot of the other European countries are now following that. If we look at the total market potential that we see for digital therapies for dementia, that market is estimated to be around $5 billion today, the addressable market. That we believe will double or triple to 10 to 15 billion over the next 10 to 15 years. If you compare that to the most mature health market for digital therapies, that is currently diabetes. And there the market size, the actual revenues, is already $11 billion today. And is projected to be $30 billion before the end of this decade. If you look at the cost of dementia, that's already larger than the cost of diabetes. The cost of diabetes is around 800 billion on a global scale. The cost of dementia is 1,000 billion on a global scale already. And that tells you something about the potential for digital therapies within dementia as well. Another thing that we're seeing is pharma companies coming into this industry and doing large licensing deals with digital therapeutic companies. And that's one of the big goals that we have as well. Finally, I want to mention the team. We have a very strong board of directors. Anders Hafstrand, a very experienced, actually Swedish life science board member and CEO. He was executive vice president at Pfizer for commercial operations and has led a number of biotech companies in Sweden and sat as chairman of the boards in numerous public companies. Lars Ternay, senior partner at Nordic Capital. Johan Luttmann, he is worth mentioning. He is the executive vice president of research and development at Lundbeck Pharma in Denmark. He's one of the foremost experts on Alzheimer's in the world. He helped design the trials that got the most recent FDA-approved drug lecanemab, its clinical trial results when he was still at Eisai, the Japanese pharma company, and he also helped design the recently positive results on a new Alzheimer's drug for aggression symptoms. We have Bertul Unaran, who used to be the chief digital officer at Novartis and Ferring Pharma, and Hanne Hillman, who has been CFO at Nanovi and has sat in Neurosearch, and it has actually currently stepped in as interim CFO for Brain Plus from the board to our operational team. Then we have our chief scientific officer, chief science innovation officer, Simon Nielsen. Very strong profile, has sat in clinical innovation at Coloplast, one of the leading Danish medtech companies that is also a global leader in their field. Paula Petsu, our chief technology officer, she built the Lundbeck digital health department from ground up. And Brian Østergaard, our business development manager, he himself an entrepreneur who built the leading solution in Denmark for autism management and exited that company. Our extended team are numerous. I've mentioned several of them, so I won't go into that again. So summarizing real briefly this opportunity, and then we can get into the Q&A. So this is dementia and Alzheimer's disease is one of the largest unmet clinical needs that exists today in the world. We are sitting and working with the leading therapy form that is not a medicine that can be delivered digitally as a digital therapy, working with the inventors and the global experts on this. So we have a very unique position. We have a strong team. We have started commercializing, so it's not something where we have to wait years and years before we see revenues coming in. And so all in all, a good opportunity and also an opportunity to make a real impact in the world. And then, of course, we'll talk about the fact that we are now doing a rights issue this month from the 10th to the 25th of May. So we can chat a little bit more about that, but to learn more about that, go onto our website and you can find information about that. And I'm sure that Aktiesparerne will also be writing about that. I know that they have announced this also.
Well, maybe we should start in that part of the rights issue. Can you tell us a little bit more about what the money, what will you use the money for?
Yeah, so we'll use the money to continue basically with the plans that we have. One of them is to expand the commercial footprint, so doing more of the commercial work in Denmark, scaling the sales in Denmark, which is our home market. We'll also be using it to introduce the product in Germany and to introduce it in the UK. And then in the meantime, some of that money will also be used for the clinical development of the products, so we can put the second version and the second product on the market as well.
Okay.
So those are kind of the main building blocks, you can say, that we're going to use some money for.
Thank you. And let me start by saying my congratulations for you that you went to market now this year. In January, you started selling your product, the CST, the digital tool. Can you tell us a little bit about the response from the people that actually are using this now? What have you heard so far?
I mean, they have been very thrilled about the quality of the product. I think one of the things, especially for therapists that come out and doing this therapy, is that they don't have a lot to go by today. So the fact that they get high quality content and structure is something that's very important to them, because we have developed this together with the leading experts, and this is something that they can recognize when they're using the product. So they're very happy about this part. And so currently, I would say a very positive reception. Now it's a matter of time before we start getting more customers on.
So what are the effects? Do you see any improvements, or is it more that they delayed the process? Or
so generally, what we know about this therapy form is that it improves cognition in the people who use it. So if you want to like have an objective measure, it moves people 2 points on a very recognized dementia scale, and 2 points corresponds to about half of, let's say, the mild phase of dementia is 4 points on that scale.
okay,
So it will move you halfway on that one on average. So that's how much it can do for people.
and when you're out on the market, I guess you have a lot of people working for you, but I'm sure you are aware of their best sales pitch. Can you share that with us? What are they focusing on?
So for people who already know cognitive stimulation therapy, which by now most of the therapists in Denmark, they do, we are not selling the therapy, because that is already accepted as a strong therapy. But what we're helping them with is to save them about 100 hours in preparation time, and to save an hour preparation before each session that they do.
Okay. Yeah.
So this is kind of the main value that we're giving to the therapist. That's with the first product.
So you don't have to open their eyes for digital therapy in itself.
No, and not for cognitive stimulation therapy, certainly not.
Okay. And we have a question from a viewer here. Are you competing with, so to speak, regular pharma, or is your product more a complement to their drugs?
It's a complementary treatment. So as I mentioned in the presentation, it is something that is it's a different mechanism of action. So you can take a drug and you can do the therapy at the same time, and you'll get not only double benefits, but you'll get a synergy effect potentially. So it enhances drugs, the effects of drugs. At least that's what the literature shows until now with the classic Alzheimer's drugs.
Yeah. I understand that Germany is sort of the leader in the adoption of digital medicine. Can you describe a little bit how are they working with digital medicine as a whole, and also are other countries, will they develop in the same direction?
Yeah. One of the areas where Germany is really far ahead is that they have established national pathways to get a product reimbursed. So that means that if you get approved through that pathway, that all the health insurances in Germany are obliged to pay for the product. And so that's quite unique.
So that supports your case, I guess.
That supports the case, because that means you don't have to go to every single customer and get them to find the budget for it.
Yeah.
If you have been approved once through a reimbursement channel like this. This we're also seeing coming in other countries like France, Belgium, Germany are establishing national reimbursement channels. In fact, all of Europe has now established, the EU has established a task force to harmonize health technology assessments for these types of treatments in the EU. It will be some years before that will, of course, be in effect, but that's really where we're moving with this.
Okay, thank you. That's interesting. Another question from the audience would be also the last question. What do you expect your market penetration in the Nordics will be?
So we're not giving out specific market penetration, you can say, targets right now. I can say that Denmark is where we'll focus most of our efforts initially. We have a lot of research partnerships in Sweden. I mentioned a few of them already. Research Institutes of Sweden, University of Gothenburg, Sahlgrenska Science Park. So these are. So I'm not promising that we'll bring a Swedish product on the market anytime soon, because right now it's Denmark, Germany, and the United Kingdom that are the key focuses. But I would be surprised if we didn't have something in the future.
Okay. So thank you so much, and good luck with your important work. So thank you.
you.
And a big applaud for
Thank you.
Kim.